Polly passed away from stage 4 cervical cancer. A small service took place on March 11, with close friends and family in attendance. A few members of the press were also invited to attend. During the service, friends, family, and members of the community spoke in Polly's honor, sharing memories and giving high praise. Chad, a member of the press, was impressed by how well respected she was. He was inspired to write a tribute to her life and decided to stay after the service to meet with attendees who were willing to share their stories. Chad is a freelance writer who is fascinated by true crime. He embarked on a year-long investigation into Polly's life and discovered that her story was even more significant than he had initially thought, and her life was more complex than it appeared. As a result, he decided to write a book about her. Polly G was abused as a child and never had a stable home. Polly entered a life of crime and drug addiction at an early age. Recently, her brother informed her of their mother's death as she was finishing her shift at a local warehouse. This news caused Polly to relapse into drug addiction and criminal activities after being clean for 3 years. She and 3 accomplices were arrested for armed burglary. During the trial, Polly alleged that her co-defendants had coerced her into the crime. However, the judge did not accept her explanation and sentenced her to 15 years in prison. After serving 3 years of her sentence, Polly was introduced to Joseph. Their relationship blossomed, leading to Joseph proposing and Polly accepting. Shortly after their engagement, Polly was diagnosed with cervical cancer and began treatment, but it was discovered too late to be removed. Polly and Joseph worked together to secure her early release and seek compensation for negligent medical care. After a lengthy legal battle, Polly was granted early release. Joseph picked her up from jail, taking her shopping before caring for her in Spokane. Polly received medical care from her regular doctor and borrowed Joseph's car to continue her treatment in Tacoma. Joseph remained in Spokane. Despite these positive developments, Polly eventually returned to her criminal ways. She exploited her medical condition by posting sexually suggestive images on social media to entice men into sending her money. She also created GoFundMe accounts to raise funds for her burial and medical costs. Polly manipulated others into aiding her in scams and deceived Joseph into sending her money, portraying herself as a victim of a broken heart. Joseph worked tirelessly with Polly and a supportive team to fight the Department of Corrections, DOC, and improve Polly's quality of life. Their efforts led to Polly winning a lawsuit against the DOC after 2 years. Joseph eagerly anticipated marrying Polly and building a life together. However, after Polly received her settlement, she informed Joseph that he had not provided sufficient mental support. She revealed that she had found someone else who met her needs, signaling her intention to marry him. Joseph made futile attempts to win her back, spiraling into a deep depression. Despite interventions from loved ones to prevent it, Joseph tragically succeeded in his suicide attempt. Josie is Joseph's sister. She blamed Polly for his death and was determined to get her revenge by killing Polly. She arrived at Polly's home, dressed as a delivery driver, and asked for Polly. Bradley answered the door and informed her that Polly had passed away. He told her that he was married to Polly and asked if he could help. Josie made a rash decision that Bradley was also responsible for her brother's death as Polly. She pulled out a gun and as she was about to fire, Bradley ran past McCullough. McCullough is the mother of Polly's grandson. McCullough tackled Josie and, in the struggle, gained possession of the gun. The gun fired and McCullough accidentally killed Bradley. Josie ran off. McCullough was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 19 years in prison. Eric is Polly's oldest son and the father of Polly's grandson. One night, he was awakened by a friend who asked for a ride. Eric met his friend along with 2 other men and a woman. Eric took them to a small cabin in the woods. The passengers got out of the vehicle and asked Eric to wait. Later, the men returned and asked Eric to drive them to Spokane. A week later, the police showed up at his home and arrested him for murder. He later found out that the men had made the woman dig her own grave and buried her body in it before leaving. Eric was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Jerome is the younger sibling of Polly. After his family's misfortunes, he fell into a deep drug addiction. His family intervened and he enrolled in rehab. While in rehab, he found a non-profit that shared advice for victims and convicted criminals. He contacted his incarcerated loved ones and the non-profit, donating a substantial amount of funds to both the non-profit and community resources. He is now a member of the non-profit's board. The preceding story is based on real-world experiences as narrated by victims, witnesses, and convicted criminals.